Bakit po nung itong dalawang tao na humarap po sa kabanalan ng pagsaisang dibdib, hindi po ba ang malimit nilang sinasabi, for better or for worse? Sa karamdaman o sa kalusugan, till death do us part.
When we say, till death do us part, this is not even biblical. It started in the 15th century in England.
Yun daw pong till death do us part is not biblical. I will humbly disagree, Sir Speaker. Ang sabi po ng Panginoong Diyos, kung ano yung pinagsama ng Diyos, ay huwag papaghihiwalay ng tao. Yun lamang po, ibig sabihin. Nasa Biblia po yun. Walang sino man ang pwedeng magpahiwalay doon sa pinagsama ng Diyos.
Unang-una, we have to make a distinction between the phrase, till death do us part, and the statement attributed to the Lord that what God has put together, no man shall separate. Itong death, till death do us part, wala naman to sa Biblia. And I would challenge the distinguished Marcoleta to point to the Bible whether there is such a term there or a phrase there, till death do us part. Wala po.
I will accept the challenge, Mr. Speaker, because all laws are supposed to be applicable to all citizens of this republic. We are not supposed to legislate something that should only be for use of a few, of a special class. I will not agree with the proposition, Mr. Speaker, that the divorce bill should only be for those marriages which are at the brink of collapse. Who is going to make a judgment, Mr. Speaker, that a certain marriage is now supposed to be terminated by way of a divorce? Bakit po nung itong dalawang tao na humarap po sa kabanalan ng pagsaisang dibdib, hindi po ba ang malimit nilang sinasabi, for better or for worse? Sa karamdaman o sa kalusugan, till death do us part, Sir Speaker. Hindi ba ganun po yung general premise natin? Bakit po ang daming nag-survive? And the best example is the one of the good sponsor, Sir Speaker. Bakit hindi po ang gawin nating panuntunan, pagtulong-tulungan po natin ang mga marriages na nahihirapan? Kung kukunti naman pala yun, and there are only a special few, sabi ng ating sponsor, we're not supposed to legislate a bill that will be characterized as a class legislation, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have to teach my distinguished colleague on what is the meaning of class legislation. This is not absolute. Members of the same class who are affected by the same circumstances would not be class legislation if a law is passed for their benefit or for their needs. So, this bill is not class legislation. Number two, no less than the Supreme Court in Te versus Te declared that the dissolution of a marriage is a merciful interment of a long-dead marriage. What is brought before the family court is not a vibrant marriage. What is brought before the family court is the cadaver of a decaying marriage. For this reason, there is really need for the state to rescue spouses and their children from this cruel, abusive, and abandoned relationship. When we say, till death do us part, this is not even biblical. It started in the 15th century in England as part of a literature which had been followed by subsequent generations. And the majority of marriages in the Philippines are not canonical marriages or Christian marriages. They are civil marriages. And the state can provide exceptions as a rescue for this kind of marriages which are now really long dead in the language of the Supreme Court. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, yun daw pong till death do us part is not biblical. I will humbly disagree, Mr. Speaker. Ang sabi po ng Panginoong Diyos, kung ano yung pinagsama ng Diyos, ay dapat, ay huwag papaghihiwalay ng tao. Yun lamang po, ibig sabihin. Nasa Biblia po yun. Walang sino man ang pwedeng magpahiwalay doon sa pinagsama ng Diyos.
Mr. Speaker, we should
Teka po, hindi pa po ako tapos,
hindi ka pa
Mr.
tapos.
Speaker.
Okay.
Yung family code was mentioned also. I believe, Mr. Speaker, the family code offers two alternatives also. One is legal separation and annulment. What is so special about this special group of people whose marriages are so broke that they cannot do something about it? It is as if that everything else cannot be sufficient to restore it or to even improve that relationship. Ano po yung specialty ng group na ito? Bakit hindi na lang annulment? Nandun naman po sa ating batas to eh. Bakit hindi na lang legal separation? In other words, our family code, Mr. Speaker, addresses this particular problem. And so it becomes very special if, aside from these two alternatives, there will be another one to be offered to this group of unfortunate marriages, Mr. Speaker. Now, the sponsor is asking for biblical precept. I will contribute one, Mr. Speaker. In Malakay, chapter 2, verse 16, tatagalugin ko na po, Mr. Speaker, para po sa ating kapakanan. Ito po is quoted from God Himself. Namumuhi ako sa diborsyo ng mag-asawa, sabi ng Panginoong Diyos ng Israel. At namumuhi ako sa taong binabalot ng karahasan ang sarili na parang nababalot ng kasuotan. Mr. Speaker, if the Lord God Himself hates divorce, sino ba tayo na mga tao lamang na nilalang niya ang siya pang gagawa ng paraan para isulong ito?
Tapos na po kayo.
Baka gusto niyo sumugot muna, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
O pwede po ako sumagot?
Opo.
Okay. Unang-una, we have to make a distinction between the phrase, till death do us part, and the statement attributed to the Lord that what God has put together, no man shall separate. Itong death, till death do us part, wala naman to sa sa Biblia. And I would challenge the distinguished Marcoleta to point to the Bible whether there is such a term there or a phrase there, till death do us part. Wala po.
I will accept the challenge, Mr. Speaker.
Let me continue. The
No,
phrase,
you are offering a challenge, Your Honor.
let me just continue before you accept the challenge. The phrase, quote, until death do us part, was first popularized in this English-speaking world following the first printing of the Book of Common Prayer in England in 1549. During the time of Edward VI, when the average lifespan was 47 years old. Yung naman na statement ni Jesus Christ to the Pharisees ay hindi naman doctrinal or cast in stone. Because in his answer, in his conversation with the Pharisees, he said he made an exception. The exception is you can divorce an unchaste wife. So meron ng exception agad. And in the Pauline principles, St. Paul added another exception. A spouse who is an unbeliever and leaves his believing spouse, the spouse left behind can remarry and divorce the unbeliever. So there are exceptions to this. Now, in the family code, we have 3 modes of making a marriage not subsisting. One is the dissolution of a marriage based on psychological incapacity at the time of the marriage, although manifested during the marriage. This is the canonical divorce, which has been practiced in the Catholic Church for ages. And this canonical divorce precedent came into the family code because of the lobby of the Catholic Church. This is according to just one of the justices who was part of the committee which drafted the family code, Justice Frida Roth Romero. Now, another mode is annulment. But annulment covers causes simultaneous or prior to the marriage. It does not cover causes consequent to the marriage during cohabitation. And in most cases, the causes for divorce would be after the marriage. Now, with respect to legal separation, this is only separation from bed and board. The husband and the wife can live separately, but the marriage tie is not severed. In other words, they cannot remarry So much so that concubinage and adultery would result, which are public offenses, because they have new and other relationships. But all of these are not adequate, because we need a divorce law to cover causes during the cohabitation of the spouses. And we need a divorce law to allow the spouses to remarry. That is why we need this divorce law. Moreover, experience would show that in all of these cases of dissolution of marriage, annulment, and legal separation, they are very expensive and takes a long time. That is why we have provided in this bill a less expensive and affordable mode of marriage. And in many circumstances, it is even cost-free to the court-assisted petitioner. And we have also provided in the bill that the judge of the family court will resolve the petition for divorce within 1 year from the expiration of this 60-day cooling-off period. So that makes it affordable and expeditious. Finally, we are a secular state. The Philippines is a secular state. Under our Declaration of Principle, we have maintained that separation of church and state. While we respect the canons of the church, we should not be controlled by the canons of this church in secular matters. Because marriage is a human institution. It is subject to human frailty and mundane misgivings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, let us go to the acceptance to my challenge, whether there is any statement in the Bible with respect to till death do us part.
Before the challenge, Mr. Speaker, I need to make a refutation to the statement of the sponsor because I have not heard his comment on the verse that I cited, Malachi verse 2, chapter 2, verse 16, when God said, "For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel." Question is, if God himself hates divorce, how can one of us, one of his creation, sponsor divorce? There was no specific statement made by the sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, again, he cited that divorce, annulment is very costly and a very long process. So why would you exclude? Why would you make a special and fast lane to some marriages which perceive the relationship to be in tatters? And you do not offer explanation to the rest and to all those who survived and made sure that their marriage will continue. Bakit po palaging special na lang ang treatment? Ba't kinakailangang maging mabilis para sa kanila at hindi masyadong magastos? Bakit sa iba po nating mga nag-survive o maaring tumuloy sa either legal separation or annulment, magastos po yun. But that is the law. Bakit bibigyan po natin ngayon ng special attention, a fast lane to these marriages, unfortunate they may be, but I think they do not have a special place any legislation that should be general in scope. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. And to the challenge, paano po kung maibibigay ko sa inyo yung verse, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na sinasabi na malaya lamang ang isang nag-asawa at mapuputol lamang yung bond of marriage kapag patay na ang isa sa kanila. What if I am able to show you a particular biblical phrase? Will you withdraw your sponsorship, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Show it now.
What is the answer, Mr. Speaker?
Please show it now. If you are accepting the challenge, could you tell us where in the Bible this phrase, till death do us part, appears? Well, anyway, Mr. Speaker, when we say till death do us part, death here could be the physical cessation of life. But death also can be metaphorical. It could be the cessation of love, respect, and tolerance. That is why marriages which have forfeited these qualities of love and respect and tolerance can be the subject of divorce in all of the countries in the world except the Philippines and the Vatican, Mr. Speaker.
Let's go back to the challenge, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Will the sponsor, Mr. Speaker, be gracious enough to give me a little time because wala po palang internet dito sa loob kasi po yung aking notes nandun sa aking planner, nandun sa opisina ko, pakukuha ko lang sana. But if the sponsor will agree that if I am not able to bring to him today the particular verse in the Bible, I withdraw all my interpellation. Otherwise, if I am able to give him the complete verse in the Bible, he will withdraw his sponsorship, Mr. Speaker.
I will never withdraw my sponsorship. And I am certain the distinguished gentleman cannot show any place in the Bible quoting till death do us part.
On the strength of my oath.
But if the gentleman cannot show this, then most probably he should vote for the bill.
I want to make sure, Mr. Speaker, nandun po sa planner ko kasi sinulat ko na po kaninang umaga eh. I want to make sure, ayoko pong magkamali. Kaya kung papayag po kayo, magkaibigan naman po tayo eh. Bigyan nyo lang po ako ng ilang minuto para makuha ko po yung aking planner.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. He can get that. It should not be counted against my time.
So, kailan ko po pwedeng ibigay sa inyo?
Nasaan po yung planner ninyo?
Mr. Speaker, may I terminate my interpellation for a while until I was able to get my planner?
Yes, of course, Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
I believe Honorable Marcoleta was recognized earlier. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize for the delay. Fortunately, I was able to retrieve the verse that I have cited. Mr. Speaker, I'm citing 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 39, which reads, and I quote, "A woman is obligated to stay in her marriage as long as her husband is alive. But if her husband dies, she is free to marry whomever she wants. Only it should be believer in the Lord. So till death do us part talaga. Kailangang mamatay po yung isa para lang makapag-asawa ka pa ng iba. Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. And I think my good friend is honorable enough to accept the challenge. I accepted the challenge, and I think it is for him to withdraw his sponsorship. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, what the distinguished interpolator quoted is not the phrase till death do us part. In fact, what he said was only with respect to the woman, not to the husband. It is here that when the husband dies, the woman can remarry. But it would be better if she does not remarry. That is completely different from till death do us part, which is addressed to both the husband and the wife. But as I've said, death here could be physical cessation of life or a metaphor that love, respect, and tolerance in the marriage had already ceased. And there is no way of reconciling these spouses. I am ready to answer the next question, if any.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Marcoleta, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I did not know that my good friend, the sponsor, is after the exact word, till death do us part. But it was only a matter of romanticizing it, Mr. Speaker. The couple are before or is before the solemnizing priest or anyone who is in a position to celebrate the marriage. So until death do us part is to romanticize the impending relationship. But the biblical anchor is the same, Mr. Speaker. I hope my good friend could comprehend the simple import of this particular biblical passage. It is still till death do us part. Kahit bali-baligtarin mo ito, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be interpreted in another way. I rest my case, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your interpellation. And Mr. Speaker, even if we accept the annotation of the distinguished Marcoleta, it will not deny the fact that all Catholic countries who believe in the Bible have their own divorce laws in varying degrees of liberality. Only the Philippines and the Vatican do not have such divorce laws. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, distinguished Marcoleta, for your homily.